school massacre. The FBI releasing a statement today admitting they failed to investigate a tip on January 5th from someone close to the suspected shooter who killed at least 17 people this week at a high school in Parkland, Florida. Now, the tip provided information about Nikolas Cruz's gun ownership, his erratic behavior, and disturbing social media posts. The tip also addressed his potential to conduct a school shooting. As a result, Florida Governor Rick Scott is calling for FBI Director Christopher Wray to resign, and Florida Senator Marco Rubio says that the FBI utterly failed the victims of this shooting. Here now to discuss, Steve Rogers, former FBI National Joint Terrorism Task Force member, also of the Donald J. Trump Presidential Advisory Board, and Darren Porcher, retired NYPD lieutenant. I got to start with you because Captain America, Steve, you said yesterday on this show last night, while others did the ring around with it, and I know it's tough to say politically, but you said the FBI dropped the ball.
Yes, they sure did. And the signal came to me when that FBI agent stood up and said that the end of the trail, they got to the end of the trail, Charles, when on that video the statement was said by the killer that he wanted to be a professional school shooter. And I just read right at that FBI agent said, boy, he's putting a spin on this. And to the point of Governor Clark, he's right, or the Governor Scott of Florida, every single person in leadership positions in FBI headquarters should resign or be fired. And I'll take it a step further, Charles. You know and I know, and I'm sure you know, my brother as a police officer, the blue wall goes up, right? Mm-hmm. And I urge every agent that knows something to tear down that blue wall and to start speaking up for the good of this country.
I think the rank and file, the regular agents at the Bureau, and I happen to know a lot of agents too. It was just less than a year ago I gave a speech down at their headquarters in New York and I have friends there. But, you know, this is the issue, I think, Darren, that we're talking about the top of the food chain, right? And of course, we had a statement today. And one of the things that was interesting, they said under established protocols, the information provided by the caller should have been assessed as a potential threat to life. So how does something like that not get moved along the system?
It's troublesome, to say the least, and it dates back to my memories of being a lieutenant in the NYPD when we failed to move the intelligence gathering accordingly in connection with 9/11. Vicarious liability kick comes into play with Chris Wray. He's at the forefront. He's the chief executive officer of the FBI. This should be a seamless transition of information that comes in and gets farmed out to the agents accordingly. I hear that it should have gone to the Miami office and then gone to the agents on the ground. The truth of the matter is, it's too complicated of a system for this information exchange. Therefore, you need to simplify it and make sure it gets to the boots on the ground, and therefore you can effectively eradicate the threat. This would have been an easy one, no-brainer. Had the officers, had the FBI merely just knocked on his door, it would have took the wind out of the sail of his intestinal fortitude, and he may not have gone forth to commit to this horrific act.
Let me just, before, I want to share with the audience so they understand exactly what we're talking about here. A statement from Governor Rick Scott read in part, "We consistently promote see something, say something." And a courageous person did just that to the FBI, and the FBI failed to act. See something, say something is an incredibly important tool, and people must have confidence in the follow-through from law enforcement. Then he goes on to say the FBI director needs to resign. Steve, you said the FBI dropped the ball. Should Christopher Wray resign?
He should resign, and as I said, the top echelon of that agency's got to go. It's not only this, it's the Russia investigations and everything else they're dropping the ball on. But, Charles, the question that I want answered is, all the information the school had and kids had and all that, and my gut's telling me, they did report it to local police. My gut's telling me local police, which is proper protocol, right, my friend, contacted the FBI. Had the FBI did a little digging, and they may have found that information, they could have connected the dots.
Right. I mean, we're only 2 days away from this horrific situation, and there is a likelihood that we'll find out that there were more attempts because, again, Nikolas Cruz was a known menace to society. He was expelled from the school. People were intimidated by him. The FBI dropping the ball on the YouTube video thing seems like a no-brainer, Darren.
Absolutely.
But this right here goes beyond being a no-brainer to a sort of negligence that you just could not fathom exists with intelligence agencies that are designed to protect Americans.
You know what's the surprising piece is Police responded to his residence on numerous occasions. He beat up his mother. Numerous domestic disputes occurred at that residence. So I can't understand how the local PD weren't in touch with the pulse of what was happening with this guy. It was clear that he was an ostracized individual. He was somewhat socially inept, and everyone knew it. Case in point, when you hear the students speak to him being the person that committed this horrific act, they all said, "I'm not surprised."
Right.
So it goes back to law enforcement on the ground level from a localized perspective should have had their finger on the pulse. Excluding the FBI, they should have been able to come in and stop this individual, have a sit down with him, and then it would have possibly taken the wind out of his sail, and we wouldn't have had the atrocity that occurred.
Right, guys, stay right there, because now I want to bring in Tim Clemente. He's a former FBI counterterrorism agent, also a former FBI SWAT team member. Tim, the big question right now that everyone's asking is, of course, how? Last night we were asking how the FBI could have possibly botched that YouTube video where they brought in the person who flagged it, interrogated him a couple of times, and never went to Nicholas Cruz's house or put it in some form of the database. But now a much more egregious error in January, early January, someone obviously close to Cruz notified the FBI, nothing was done. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that somebody's head needs to roll, if not several people in the FBI, because lives have been lost because of that error. We can clearly say that this would not happen had this kid been taken off the street and at least been looked at from a medical professional to see if he had serious illnesses that would cause him to be a threat, which he was, if he had guns or other weapons which he could use to be a threat, which he had. So all of these things happened because nobody followed that lead. And I don't know why it would happen. It could have been a duty agent that took that initial call and then misrecorded it and didn't put it in the proper place so that an alert would go down to the Miami field office. I don't know, but the FBI ought to look into this. They ought to do this very publicly, and it should be known. And also, I agree, the local police have some bit of blame here, because 20 or 30 or 40 times going to somebody's house and realizing they're a threat and not doing anything about it.
Well, then let me ask you this, Tim. Let's walk through this. If the inability to relay this message up the chain of command was started at the very beginning, is that sort of, can we then glean from that perhaps the entire organization is broken down, that there's something wrong there with respect to accountability, esprit de corps, just all the things that you normally would have to do to make any organization function if it's crumbling at its foundations?
Well, I don't know that you can blame the entire organization. The FBI is still the premier law enforcement and investigative body in the world. I can say that without pause. But it's made up of human beings. Human beings are flawed. Every human being has their flaws, and clearly the individual that let this fall through the cracks had a serious flaw that unfortunately affected other people's lives. So I don't think the entire agency is at fault. There are many great agents doing incredible work. There are also individuals that are doing things that
they're great agents,
and
believe me, I'm not trying to. I don't dispute that. Before you came on, I was talking about my friends who are agents, and and I spoke with the agents in New York City. I gave a speech down there last year. But what I'm talking about, and I'll ask Steve this, is when any organization can be filled with great people, but a certain message, a certain beacon has to come from the very top to send a message, to send a sort of, hey, this is the way we are going to operate. Has something gone wrong? And I'm not talking now on the Christopher Wray, but in general, where that's sort of missing.
Yes, the agents on the field are fine. I agree with you. This is about the top echelon, the leadership. The FBI has become too political. It is not the FBI of the old days. Their focus of attention should be on protecting the people of this country, and it seems like it's more involved with politics now. Therein lies the problem.
Real quick, Darren.
I think that you look at the people that generally handle the information on the information line, they're either lower level agents or they're civilians. And they just didn't have the experience to move this forward accordingly. But just attributing to what my
But it's such a scary message. Someone says, I know a kid who may shoot up a school. I mean, to me, that's like you put your hair on fire, you start running up and down the hallway, say, hey, I never seen anything like this. Someone help me. Take it up the chain of command.
It sounds like they took the message and they were looking to make the exit from the phone call and move forward to the next thing.
Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you all very much. Meanwhile, the Russian probe by Special Counsel Robert Mueller has led to